Hi, welcome to my channel today. It's another beautiful day. Today is the 27th of May 2025. And if you're watching with me tonight, I just want to wish you well in life. Beautiful. Welcome to this beautiful community of wonderful people who are aspiring to survive in this end time. Tonight I was just thinking of a topic. A friend asked me to make a video on how to handle women. And that's quite complicated and it's also a very sensitive topic. So I put down a few points and I decided I was gonna discuss these points. In my opinion, it's no secret that men and women are different in many levels. Because of these differences, it can be helpful to better understand how to handle um, various situations involving women. While both men and women can have tendencies common to their gender, the information that I want to share with you focuses on interaction with women basically. Life is all about relationship and how we handle ourselves. In those relationships, we can be the key to enjoying life. So um, I have some points I want to talk about. The first one will be communicating effectively. And we all know that communication is the key and the foundation of relationship. So if we must build a strong relationship with women, if we must handle women, the first thing you must learn is communicating effectively. And how do you communicate effectively? The first thing is that you must become an active listener yourself. Great communication is important to any healthy relationship, regardless of whether or not it is professional relationship or a personal relationship. We all know that there is no way your relationship would stand the test of time if that relationship communication if communication is not effective. Hence, I usually would say to people that sometimes when a woman is communicating a problem, she does not necessarily want your advice on how to solve it. She simply wants you to listen. So if you don't listen, there is no way you can handle them. You know, Sometimes they use body language and gestures to demonstrate that. Um, I mean, on your side, you can use body language and gestures to demonstrate that you're paying attention. For example, using good eye contact and leaning forward are ways to communicate that you are interested in the conversation. Never interrupt because it can appear as though you do not value what is being said. You know, um, I know that's common. A lot of people don't know how to listen when a lady is communicating with you. Sometimes we tend to talk over them, which is not really right. Yes, I know there's something about both genders. We also have women who talk over men and the rest of it, but I think since this topic is about how to handle women, I think that men we should learn to listen. And when women are trying to share their mind and pour their mind, it is because they trust you. That's why she's opening up her mind to you at that time. So the least we can do is to demonstrate that we are interested in whatever it is that she's sharing with you by listening attentively and staying calm. The next point would be give her the benefit of doubt. If there is a misunderstanding, do not assume that she's being deceptive. Instead of making assumptions, listen to what she has to say about what had occurred. Sometimes we are too quick to run to conclusions, and before you know it, you could just end a relationship of 3, 4, 5, 6 years in in 10 minutes simply because we're too in a hurry to assume and run to conclusions. To make sure that you are clear in what you had happened, repeat what she has said to ensure that you are on the same page. You know, Sometimes rather than running to conclusion, just simply repeat what she has said. Give her some time to explain what had just occurred. Another point would be define the nature of the relationship. That is one of the biggest problems we have. A lot of people have been friends, friend zoning someone and yet to express how they feel. And a couple of times in our lives, we have found it difficult to express how we feel towards someone. So I think it's always vital that right from the beginning or at a reasonable time, within I would say a few weeks a month to, it is always good to, define the nature of your relationship. In order to avoid misunderstanding, it is a good idea to communicate your understandings of the relationship. If you are just friends without any type of commitment, that should be communicated. And if you feel like you are more than a friend, then that should also be communicated. I mean, when you're very open about it, then it makes the relationship have a solid base. Then another point will be keep to your words. You know, During your communication with women or anyone else, it is best to say what you mean and mean what you say. That's a very, very important aspect of communication and relationship, especially when it has to do with women. Make sure that you are keen. You really mean what you say, you know, and that's it. Very important. Trust and reliability is critical. Those are two critical components of any relationship, and it's especially important if you want to maintain deep connection with that person. You have to be reliable. If people don't have trust, if people can't trust you, you know, then there'll be an issue. It'll be difficult to maintain deep connection, or um, that relationship won't stand the test of time. These are things that are very, very important. You get me? Okay, another issue will be express your interest in our feelings, to maintain a great long term relationship with anyone or with a woman, especially. Now we're talking about women. It is necessary to demonstrate an interest and openness to both caring about and understanding their emotions, get her to open up about feelings. Let Get her to open up about how she feels. Let her question you. I mean, such as how do you feel about what happened. This type of open-ended questions will allow her to communicate her feelings. So that you better understand each other. When she's open, when you open yourself, it helps to understand each other, and demonstrates that you are willing to let the relationship you know be nurtured. Another point would be understand emotional differences. I think that's very, very sensitive. I think a lot of people get into relationships without understanding that as different genders, our emotions are different. While some people believe that women are more emotional than men, that is not necessarily the truth. It's not a statement of fact, but it is a general belief or general opinion. But research has revealed that men and women simply process emotions differently. Um, the types of situations that provoke an emotional response in women is different than that of men. Instead of dismissing a woman's emotional response, I think it's better that we try to get an understanding of what is causing our response. Do not just be in a hurry to run to your conclusion. It is better to take your time, get to know her, ask questions, and give her time. Sometimes a woman won't express, what's the cause of her anger or what's the trigger. Sometimes you just have to give it time. Again, it's also good to acknowledge their strength, acknowledge their strength. One great benefit of relationship is that others may be strong where you are not strong, you know, which can be highly beneficial to your life. When you are honest about areas where the woman in your life is stronger, it can be of great benefit to you on the long run. When we talk about acknowledging our strengths, you can also talk about praise. I think practically that when you praise each other, you know, it's beautiful admiration. It's very motivating. It helps the other partner. It helps the woman feel better. It makes her feel accepted. It makes her feel honored. So I usually tell people to learn how to praise each other in relationship. Praise your partner, vice versa. You know, and this really works with women. Praise her for her strengths, praise her for being exceptional, for being good, for being generous, supportive, inspiring, motivational. Praise her for all these beautiful qualities that you see in her aside from physical looks and the rest of it. Another point would be respect our boundaries. What I mean by respecting our boundaries is some women need personal time and space. How much it varies. Sometimes some would need a whole night, to calm down. Some would need a few hours to calm down. So it's left for you to be very sensitive. How much, like I said earlier, varies. But generally speaking, you should not be intimidated by phone calls or text messages from friends, nor should you feel compelled to monitor them. As long as you trust each other, you should not worry about the time that she's away from you. Like I said, depending on what happened, sometimes you just need that space, they need some time. You should not avoid being controlling. You should also avoid being controlling and allow her to be her own person by not trying to dictate how she should live her life. I think that's one thing that really pisses women off when you're controlling, when you're not giving that space to live her life, then, that might be misunderstood. So we have to be very, very careful, when it comes to handling women. I've talked about a couple of points. The next thing is, I appreciate that career. This should be a mutual respect for each other's career. Without one diminishing the other based on the nature of their job. I've seen instances where when couples are quarreling, one will say, "Oh, I can't even believe I'm married to you. I'm a doctor, you are this," or she says, "I'm a pilot, you are that." I think that is wise that both parties respect each other's career. Praise each other, like I talked earlier on. These are the major things that help relationship, you know, stand firm. It helps both parties adore and respect and affirm each other's love and emotions and feelings. I would also talk about compliment her. You know, I don't know what you're gonna. I don't know how you're gonna succeed with a woman if you don't learn to compliment her. So whether you are in a serious relationship or just friends, a good compliment is often appreciated. When complimenting a woman, be sincere and do not just focus on her physical attributes. That's you know commonly seen in our society. When men begin to flatter women about their booty or whatever and all that, physical attributes. But I think that women feel better when you truly take time to understand them, and then you're able to see the character. When you're able to see the potentials in them, and then you praise them for them, and appreciate them, then they makes them feel good. There are many aspects of a woman's besides our physical appearance that deserves attention. It's also good to consider complementing our intelligence, our sense of humor, creativity, our cooking skills, or compassion for others. Those are some of the aspects or areas where we can complement a woman. This is really, really a good thing to do in relationship, even in friendship, not necessarily in relationship. Then the another point will be it's good to be thoughtful. When you are dealing with a woman, the gender women, regardless of the nature of the relationship, be thoughtful and consider our unique personality, and the characteristics that makes us special. Making a decision to accept your differences, whether they are based on gender or not, will likely help you with building a positive relationship throughout your lifetime. So I think that being thoughtful is something very, very essential. Something we easily overlook, when handling women. Then finally, I would say how you feel. As with any relationship, being forthcoming and not playing games will get you a lot further than being dishonest. If you're being crafty, if you used to playing games, not being honest, then I don't know. I don't see how far you can go. I don't see you building a solid relationship. In the beginning of a relationship, do not have to put all your cards on the table, right away, because you might scare her away. Sometimes I tell people to not necessarily brag, but you just be humble, be simple, don't say too much about yourself or your dreams or aspirations or even your past, you know. However, if you feel like both of you are moving at the same pace, you can share your feelings and encourage her to do the same, you know. I think that when we pour out all our emotions or tell a woman exactly how you feel, you know, sometimes they feel very scared. Women don't really like it when you are, it's like when you are fussy, you get me, or you're being, another word would be all on their face. Do you get what I mean? You know? So sometimes it's like the game of card, you know, just showcase, express your feelings over time. You know, you would always find different wonderful scenarios and opportunities to express how much you value them, but not just instantly all over her and then being I don't know. You guys know what I mean. So that's just my own advice, you know, how to handle a woman. And aside that, you also need a lot of wisdom. You know, you need a lot of divine wisdom to handle a woman. You know, that gender ain't easy though. Anyways, they're wonderful people. So well, if you've seen this video, click like, and I wish you the best. God bless you. No matter what problems you're having, God's gonna help you. The relationship is gonna be amazing. Everything is gonna work out well for you, and that's my wish for you. It's beautiful on my channel. You know, hope to see you again. Hang out with us. You know. God bless.